Okay, today we're just going to be looking at the ProPresenter Interface and how we utilize this software. I'm going to try and keep it very simple, highlight a few key features, key areas. It is a very simple program to use once you get your mind around the fact that it is able to essentially do everything you need it to do on the one screen. And that's just a bit of a mind shift from those who have grown up with PowerPoint. So basically, just to kind of outline the interface, I'll go through the different buttons and the key areas. And then later on, perhaps in future videos, we'll look at some of the more technical things around it. Now, just on this screen here, I just want to highlight a few key features. First of all, this black screen up here, this is our output display. And essentially what appears on this black area here will be what appears on the screen. So for example, if I click this men's camp thing just here, you'll notice that the men's camp graphic has appeared on the screen. Now, this is really important. This is just to basically give you an idea as to what is happening at any given time. And if you have an additional monitor, as we do at ASBC, you'll see that on there as well. While I'm here, however, I want to highlight perhaps what is one of the most important buttons in the entire program, and that's just over here. You'll notice over here that there's a little blue button with a little off written on it that says output. Now this button, essentially what it does is it controls whether or not you want the program that is ProPresenter for its output to appear on the screens, that is through the projectors. Now if this is indicated as off, it means that while you may see it here in the program, it won't be going out to the projectors. Now when you click this button to on, suddenly it has gone out. Now you don't see my second screen here, but what's actually happened is it has appeared on my second screen as it would. Now, what you need to understand about ProPresenter is that it as a program will overwrite, that is, sit over the top of anything else that attempts to be put on that second screen when the output is on. Now, when the output is off, you'll be able to slide your cursor over to your second screen and maybe see it appear. You can drag other programs to that second screen, but as soon as you click that output on, it will go over the top of everything. So this is really, really important. Sometimes you're like, why isn't what I've got up here appearing on the screen? It is always because that output is set to off. Equally, you may drag another program or piece of software to that second screen and not be able to see it. It is most likely because that output is on, even if the screen is black. So that's the first thing. I'm just going to keep that output off for now, just for the purposes of this video, but we'll want it on when presenting. So that is what's known as your output window. You can see that there. The second thing in this program is the library. Now the library is basically the collection of all your songs that you will need, perhaps PowerPoints from sermon slides, basically any kind of component that you may want to use for presentation. You can see in this library we've got a series of songs which are notified there. It says lyrics underneath, that's how they've been categorized, as well as something like this. 2018 7:15 AM service, which is a presentation. Now that's just been categorized as it's been put into the library. Now if you select one of these, you'll notice that here on the main window area, or the navigation window, you'll see that it appears as an example of what those slides contain. Equally, if I click A New Hallelujah, for example, you can see that the slides here will appear as well. These are essentially self-contained songs and presentations that are contained already on ProPresenter. We'll come back to that in a little bit. Down here we have our playlist window. Now on the left hand side we have different playlists that can be accessed. For example, here we've got one for Epic Youth, and you'll notice that the content in the display window varies because that's the Epic Youth playlist. Equally, if I click AM service, it'll update and you can see that there is content for an AM service. These playlists can be added by clicking the plus button down here and new playlist. They can also be edited. Now each of these playlists will appear as content, you can see this on the right hand side, but also as essentially a run sheet, which is just next here. So for example, 10,000 Reasons Bless the Lord, I've selected that there. When it's been added to this run sheet of sorts, you'll notice that the slides associated with it are connected to our playback window here. So very important. So first of all, output, this is what you see. The library, this is where you source your slides. Your playlist, this is where you construct your presentation, and your display window, which we'll talk a bit more about later. This is how you will present your slides. You'll notice that when you have a series of items on your playlist, they'll just appear in a continuous order down the playlist window. The output window. That's because this continuous button has been pushed. We always keep that selected. If you deselect that, it just highlights that one piece that you have selected on the playlist. When you click the contiguous button, it'll turn it into a full presentation, as you can see. So before we look at the presentation window, I just want to highlight some of the other buttons that we have up here. First of all, for the purposes of this, I'll put the men's camp graphic back up, and you can see that I've just simply put that up by clicking the play button next to it. The buttons up here are quite important. First of all, this clear all button, this will basically make it fade to black. You click that, anything will fade to black. Video, visual, lyrics, anything, it will all just clear. And that's a good way that if you need to bail in any given moment, you can just clear all. Now, the other thing to be aware of is that ProPresenter uses what's called 2 layers of graphics, the foreground and the background. What this allows us to do is if we have slides or lyrics on our foreground, that is our closest area, what we can actually do, and just excuse me as I just put a little bit of a still background, a motion background in this. What it allows us to do is if we have, say, a background, as you can see, we've got these blue clouds here, we can overlay them with the lyrics on top, which means that as we progress through the lyrics, the background doesn't change, but the lyrics do. Now, this is important because as we look at these different clear options, we can either clear the slides, which is the foreground. You'll notice that the lyrics disappeared. I'm just going to re-add them by clicking onto them. Or if you need to, you can delete the background. So you can actually either clear one or the other. So the background, the foreground, or all. So for example, you might find yourself in a situation where you have your men's camp graphic, but then you accidentally clicked the lyrics of this chorus here. Now, thankfully, it's overwritten, so it's knocked out the background. But on occasion, it won't actually do that. It'll keep the lyrics and actually overlay them over the top. I don't think I actually can recreate that at this present point in time. Nope, it's just working too well. But it may be that you need to knock out the background or the slides just in order for that to take place. Just for the continuation, this is create new presentation. That will add something, a component to your library. We'll talk about that later. Editor allows you to edit each of these particular presentations and component pieces. Again, we'll talk about that later. This video image button, what it does is it opens an area that allows us to grab graphics, as you would have noticed I did before, information slides, ones that we permanently want to include in our presentation. We'll talk about that later. Audio, we won't use this very much, but it allows you to play audio tracks. Once again, it's all in the program. So for example, I've got this little good time audio here. If I click that, it will play. Messages, again, we don't use this, but we can put messages on the screen if we need to. Live output we will never use, nor do we really use Bibles or social media or template. We will use format, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. That allows us to change the format of a whole number of slides at the same time. Output window we've already spoken about, and volume is purely to do with the audio or the any kind of audio associated with videos or audio tracks you want to play. Now, again, you shouldn't have to adjust the volume in the program. The person on the sound desk will be able to do that for you. So, with all this in mind, I'll talk about the video image bin, and then we'll talk about what it looks like to create a playlist, and maybe I'll do that in another video. So our video image bin is really important. While most of our lyrics and our songs we can collect from the library, there are going to be certain graphics and videos that we want to gather from a separate library, which is where our videos and images are stored. Now you'll notice that when I click the video image bin, it just pops up kind of essentially a window or a section down here. Now in this, it has a bit of a navigation pane here. You'll notice that there's these lists or these titles with a little orange indicator on the left. These are what are called hot lists. Now hot lists, essentially what they do is they take whatever is contained within a particular folder on the computer and add it in the form of a library. On our presentation computer, we have one called information slides, which I've currently got selected here. We've also got another one called temporary media. That means that whatever we place within these folders, that is physical folders on the desktop of the computer, will automatically appear in these folders. So for example, in our information slides, we have things like announcements, and you'll see that as I click it, it provides it straight up onto the screen. We might have one for baptism. These are all things that we can get should I say, and drag into our playlist should we need them. Equally, this doesn't just occur for physical or still graphics, it also occurs for videos. For example, we've got a video here of Anne Hallett and MAF. We click that.
My name's Anne Hallett at DNS or Coffee Industry Hospital.
I'm just going to pause that, but you can see that it automatically plays as well. These can be dragged into our playlist as well. I'm just going to clear all just to make sure our screen is clear. We can close the video or image bin anytime by just clicking it once again, just giving us more space to navigate on our presentation pane. So now I'm just going to end this video because it has been 11 minutes, and we'll start another video talking about how to construct a playlist.